Good afternoon. Glad to see you after the holiday break. The first order of business is to announce the alternate and proxy representatives. I have three. I have Brian McCann for Chris Barrett, Dottie Vaughn for Stephen Shipman, and Todd Benny for Jeff Brooks. Are there other alternates or proxies?
Randy for Don Wheat.
Yes. Any others? I want to remind our guests to sign in on the sheet, as well as the faculty senators to sign in. The agenda and other materials are all the way on the left. And as is custom, we'd like for each of the guests to introduce themselves. So we'll start right back here in the corner. You would stand and introduce yourself.
Libraries.
Richard Castle, Street Garden, filling in part practices that they do.
Marino, and
Thomas Glenn with the Student Systems Project.
Stacy Healy, Provost, Academic Affairs. Jane Cassidy, Academic Affairs.
Tyler Kearney, Finance and Administration.
Stanley Wilder, New Library. Jake Condon, Library.
Aaron Rusher, also the libraries.
Jonathan Sanders, Student Action Accountability.
Chelsea Bickle, Student Advocacy and Accountability. Teresa Granger, Student Advocacy and Accountability.
Judith Chabot, Library Committee.
Any other guests today? Well, we welcome all of you to our first faculty senate meeting of the spring semester. Susanna has indicated that we did not have anybody to register for public comments on any of our agenda items, and I did not receive any either. Next item of business is consideration of our November 27th minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes with any minor corrections? Brooks, do I see a second? All the way in the back. Now that the motion is on the floor, are there any major corrections that we need to make to the minutes that were distributed? Seeing no corrections that need to be made, we'll vote on approving the minutes with any minor typographical or other corrections that need to be made later. All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Any abstentions? All right, with the minutes that have been approved, then I will give the President's report, and I'll try to be briefer than I was at the November meeting. I have met with several. I thought December was going to be a slow month. It did not turn out to be a slow month. So I'll just hit the high spots. We did have a consulting firm from Burson, Kahn, and Wolf come and talk about strategic communications and the needs there. I spent my hour and more with them on what we actually needed for strategic communications, both internally and externally. And so we should be getting their report back sometime, I would anticipate, by the end of the month or the first week of February. I'll talk more about IT in the meetings I've had with them in a couple of minutes. Greek Oversight Committee has met. We obviously want to keep an eye on that, and I am the faculty representative on that committee, and so we're keeping an eye on what the Greek Affairs Office does, as well as the Greek chapters in general. I have met with Finance and Administration and Dr. Haney on our regular bases. The Search Committee for Resource Management, Human Resource Management, has met. The job description is being finalized, and because it's for the HRM director, there is an outside search firm that is coordinated with our on-campus search committee, and so that search firm is Starbeck Pimentel and Associates, and they will be actually conducting the search soliciting candidates, etc., so that that is removed from any potential conflicts of interest with our HRM department. So once the announcement is made, then it will be posted not only on our website, but all the information and applications will be directed to that search firm. Vice Provost Matt Lee and Vice Provost Sasha Thockberry met with the Executive Committee on policy changes for digital education. We think that they're fairly well on track. I will solicit nominees for a task force in the next couple of minutes, because basically that's only one of the many academic technology needs that we have. And so the Faculty Senate will take the lead in actually determining what academic technology needs that we have. We'll obviously coordinate that with Office of Academic Affairs, Finance Administration, ITS, Information Technologies, and with online digital education, but it's going to be very difficult to separate out one of those aspects from another, because in digital everything's tied together. So it's going to be really important for us to chart our future in that regard. I did meet with Jonathan, Dr. Saunders from Student Advocacy and Accountability, and he's going to give us a summary report in just a couple of minutes. And then I did have the pleasure of meeting with our new provost, Dr. Haney, this morning, and we will agree to disagree at some points in time. It didn't happen this morning because we're just getting into this, but realistically, we do have lots of opportunities, and the faculty will be highly involved in most of those activities. I want to remind you of several things that are going on this semester. One is that we will have our Animal and Society Forum February 26th. We'll have it at the Vet School Auditorium just down the street in the evening. We've just about got all of these speakers finalized, and so we'll be sending out the publicity on that. We will have brief presentations and then the actual forum discussion with open-ended questions from the audience. We have had one misfortune about an animal that's pretty important to most of us. Dr. Cope, who was scheduled to be the moderator of that, had an unfortunate incident on Friday, and he's going to probably be off campus for the next 4 to 6 weeks, depending upon what the MRI says on his condition. So in that regard, he's in good spirits. He still has his computer. He just immobilized as far as physical activity. So we will be probably looking for a moderator for that. So if you're interested in being the moderator for that forum, why, let me know. Otherwise, I guess I'll be stepping into his position unless he's back on campus. Speaking of Dr. Cope, kind of keep him in your thoughts. Once you get laid up, it's really not pleasant to have your total lifestyle disrupted by a physical injury. We'll give you more updates as those become available. We're also going to reinitiate our dean's seminars on their scholarship, and I've contacted one and I'm ready to contact another, and we'll let you know about that. We will be resurrecting the retirement and savings options for retirement that we had in the fall. We'll be talking about sabbaticals, mentoring, and what we can actually do for academic freedom and free speech, as well as associate professors. The next Association of Faculty Senates and the Faculty Summit in Alexandria will be on February 2nd. Regent Collis Temple will be the keynote speaker, and then we'll have all kinds of administrative and faculty matters that will be discussed. So several of us tend to go up there about every time, so if you're interested in doing that, don't be afraid. Contact me, contact Brooks, and we'll be glad to give you as much information as you need. Also, if you need a ride, some of us go up there. Some of you belong to the AAUP chapter. They've become much more active. The state forum in the last couple of months, and so they will be carrying the load of the discussion in the afternoon about what we actually need to do to support higher education and our faculty causes here in Louisiana. So if you're an AAUP member, then obviously you're more than welcome to attend and participate in those discussions. As I said earlier, I'm looking for volunteers for the Academic Technology Task Force. You can either send me an email, catch me after, catch Susanna, because we do want 4 or 5 faculty members. I'm looking for 2 types of faculty members. I'm looking for those who say, this is absolutely the technology we need for me to do X, and we don't have it, and here's solutions. And I'm looking for faculty members that, wait, academic technology, digital what? So I'm looking for both extremes because we want this to be as all-inclusive as possible, because we do have to provide the roadmap for the future. The business plan that President Alexander outlined to the leadership breakfast that some of us were able to attend on Tuesday, we're trying to increase our on-campus enrollment. We're trying to increase our digital enrollment. We're trying to increase our research expenditures, and we're trying to improve our retention and graduation rates. Every one of those depends upon us having a very strong and workable digital infrastructure that interfaces one area with another when needed. So we, as the faculty who determine educational policy for the university, we have to help develop the plan. And because of the different factions, it seems logical that we, the faculty, particularly the executive committee, will coordinate those efforts and form the task force. So if you're interested in that, or if you've got ideas of individuals, this would be a perfect individual. We obviously want to keep it a fairly small, 5 to 7 if possible, no more than 9 working group, but we're willing to accept all names. The same thing goes for the Greek chapters. Some of them are looking for chapter advisors. You don't have to have been a member of that Greek chapter. You just have to have an interest in some of the other students and how they perform on campus. But one of the Oversight Committee members' role is, that's a new requirement, is that every chapter does have to have a faculty or staff advisor, or they will not exist on this campus. So we'll be working with Greek Affairs, but I wanted to alert you that if you have an interest, or if you happen to be an alum of one of the Greek chapters, then please consider volunteering to be their advisor, because obviously this is a great mentoring opportunity as well as a requirement. Most of you have seen the announcement on the lactation rooms and the Tiny Tiger activities that are now available at various locations on campus. Our benefits committee will be looking not only at parental leave, but I've got a proposal from the LSU Health Science Center in New Orleans that they have proposed that we expand it to be not only just faculty, but also crisis leave, knowing that occasionally we do have crises due to climate, weather, and other circumstances, that is the approach that we should have, so that, quote, we're taking care of the other members of our community. Susanna and I will be trying to pull together a cheat sheet, if you will. Most of us are concerned about our online presence with our courses, whether it's through Moodle or otherwise, and this accessibility that we're required to do. And in some, I would say in not all, but in many instances, it's not going to be a chore once we understand what we need to do. Most of the software that we use, whether it's a PDF format, whether it's a PowerPoint format, there are mechanisms by which you can audit your individual file and see whether it's compatible and get the help that we need. Most of us just don't know how to do that. So we're going to try and work with Dr. Lee's group, his accessibility group, so that we can assist faculty in that manner. Our adjudication committee is being formed, and we will bring the names of those members to you for ratification. Even though you gave the executive committee last fall the prerogative to name those committee members, we want you to be comfortable with how we're proceeding with the adjudication process. Courses and curricula obviously keeps chugging right along with all the different changes that are occurring. Admission standards and honors is tackling several new challenges, not the least of which is being more involved with the enrollment exceptions. And so Dr. Williams and her committee, several of them are actually interfacing very closely with Dr. Avilas and his group. The General Education Committee, co-chaired by Bill Kelso, is actually transitioning us into that challenge of the integrative learning core, and so we will probably be trying to change the name of the General Education Committee to match that. Dr. Shibu, and you'll hear more from Dean Wilder about the library and what we're trying to accomplish with some of those things. Obviously, there's never enough money. So one of the proposals will be how do we mitigate that, and I've already talked about the benefits committee. So we're going to try and reinvigorate some of the college policy committees, because all of a sudden now we've got some energy, we've got some momentum, and the college policy committees need to be involved with some of the decisions in the colleges as well as us generally for the university. We will have obviously the elections, and we are recruiting for the various faculty senate committees because most of those committee memberships are a 3-year term. We're trying to figure out how we're going to fund a salary equity study. We talked about that in the fall, and it appears that none of the entities that could be and should be involved have quite enough money, so I'll be trying to spearhead an effort to coordinate. If you have this much and we can get this much, then we only have that much left to do to fund a study of that nature. We're continuing to look at reviews of associate and assistant deans, and last but not least, Dr. Cassidy is reforming the dismissal for cause in the initiation process, and that will happen this spring. So with that, I'll conclude my report and ask for any questions that you might have about some of the activities that I or the executive committee have been doing on your behalf, since you were all on break. Yes.
What is the total, or what is I guess a broad sum estimate needed for the equity study?
We're talking about a graduate assistantship and then just some general costs for online access and those type things, probably in the $45,000 range. A little more than our faculty senate budget. Yes. Other questions? All right. Thank you very much. The first speaker that we have today is Angelica Marino, and she's going to talk about the need for volunteers for online giving and the online giving day that we will have. So we're just going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for having me. As Dr. McMillan mentioned, my name is Angelica Marino. I am the online giving coordinator here within the annual giving department at the foundation. And I'm very excited, one, to be presenting first, because I've been so excited. But also to tell you about the work myself and many of my colleagues have been doing to plan LSU's First Giving Day, and the opportunity you all have to help us and its success as being a social media ambassador. So I wanted to start with some basic information. I am sure that this is the first time that many of you are hearing about Giving Day. So it is on April 30th, which is the day the campus was dedicated in 1926. And it is 24 hours of Tigers giving back. And solely why the annual giving department has decided to do this is we really feel this is our opportunity to continue building a culture of philanthropy here at LSU. So donors will be able to go online at gogive.lsu.edu. And our vendor who hosts our crowdfunding platform is community funded. They also are going to be hosting Giving Day's platform. And when you log on to, or when you go to the platform, you will see a campaign page is listed for all of the colleges and units, the Alumni Association, the foundation here, the TAF, and then also parents, students, and faculty and staff. So you all will, in fact, have your own campaign page, which is very exciting. So our goals. So this is our first Giving Day, and we are going to be ambitious. So our goal is highly participation and donor focus. It is 1,860 donors in honor of the year LSU was founded, which is why 100 social media ambassadors is imperative and is going to make the difference in helping us achieving that goal. So who do we want as our social media ambassadors? We want them to be passionate students, alumni, faculty and staff like yourselves, who will be advocates for LSU that day and will help rally Tigers to participate. Like Dr. McMillan said, this is a solely online event. So you are considered digital volunteers, but you truly are probably the biggest key player in our success because of your role, which is to helping us spread the word. And that could be through social media, it could be through emails, it can be through phone calls, and even text messages. Any opportunity you all feel throughout the 24 hours to keep momentum going. Giving Day is a community effort, and myself solely, although I am the lead on the project, does not have the capabilities you all will have to create excitement and an urgency to give in the 24 hours can create a sense of unity, and most importantly, can show the difference that the impact of giving will make. There are a few responsibilities involved, okay, but the first three I feel are very simple. Participating in the virtual training. This is not something anybody will have to attend. Community funded will be providing me with a recording, and part of the video will contain how to be an advocate for LSU, best practices, strategies that they have used in the past with other universities, and then also how to view the technology and the platform. And then joining the SMA Facebook group. If you all do not have Facebook, that is okay. I am still going to be corresponding through email, but this is just my way to hub 100 people as one area of communication. And then also following myself, following the foundation, the Alumni Association, and TAF on social media. The last two are the most important, inviting at least 5 Tigers to participate. If I do have 100 social media ambassadors signing up and everyone is able to get 5 to participate, having 500 donors is 27% of our goal. It could increase to 1,000. So again, this is the role you all will play. And then using the social media ambassador toolkit, my colleague Jenny Gutierrez, who is our social director of marketing communications here, is going to be developing a day of promotional toolkit for you all. So it will have sample images that you can use, sample posts with content. It will have a timeline of emails and posts that are coming from the foundation that you can send out as well. An FAQ, anything you all can imagine, it will be in there. And then we are also going to be developing what we call a promo kit, a promotional kit. We're still determining the content based on my budget, but it is going to have something you can wear or something you can hold to post on social media. But I'm going to be providing you all with all of the tools and content you will need. So really just your active participation is needed. So next steps are pretty simple. Once I have the online form, I'll send to Dr. McMillan and Susanna. For those who are interested to sign up, it is going to be open January 30th through February 28th. And that, y'all, is my contact information. But what questions do you guys have for me? Any? Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So you mentioned impact.
Yes.
What is the money going to be used for?
Yeah, so what we are going to do for each unit is have their unrestricted fund, so most likely the Dean's Excellence Fund. Myself and Julie Lefevre, my boss, are going to work with all the development officers in each of the units and find out also where there is highest need and the most unrestricted funds. So they are going to go through there. Parents will have parent fund, and students will be going for student emergency fund. Anything that is most unrestricted that we can have stories really also and content, that's where we're hoping that the impact will come from, those most unrestricted funds. Anything else? Okay. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
One of our next speakers doesn't need any introduction, the other one does. We all are familiar with Dr. Cassidy, our Senior Vice Provost in Academic Affairs. Tyler, on the other hand, tends to keep a lower profile, but he carries the load for finance and administration as our associate vice president there. So I'm going to turn it over to the two of you, and whatever you want to say about APIC. APIC is the Administrative Process Improvement Committee, and basically we probably don't use that often enough because Tyler occasionally calls me and says, I guess we don't have any problems. So, yes.
Well, I'm impressed that you remembered the name of the committee because I had to go look it up before we came to call it APIC. But thank you. We asked, Tyler and I asked Ken for just a few minutes at the meeting today to remind you that we're in existence, to remind you that we're a tool for you to use. The committee was started in 2015, about 3 years ago. Then Provost Rick Kobeck, along with Vice President Dan Lazell, had a number of meetings with Faculty Senate Executive Committee and Staff Senate Executive Committee about concerns that there were among faculty and staff on campus, and there was no way for us as faculty and staff to lodge those complaints. There was just no place to go to get anybody to listen to us. So the committee was started, and with we thought there would be kind of three main things. One was dealing with policies and processes and procedures, obviously on campus. Workday started the next year. This is not where you talk about how bad Workday is, right? Because there's a whole separate committee for that. But also communication issues on campus, what wasn't working there, and any training that people felt that they needed. So the committee is made up of, Tyler and I co-chair the committee. There's somebody, and actually if you see the committee, it's kind of a parallel committee with a group of folks from the academic side of the campus and some from the finance and administrative side of the campus. There are 3 faculty members that are appointed by the president or Faculty Senate Executive Committee. 1 person is from the executive committee. 1 person is from you, the Faculty Senate, and 1 person is a faculty member at large from the committee, from the campus. There also is somebody representing Staff Senate on the committee. It's been expanded now. We have a communications person, and there are a variety of other people from the finance side who come in and can address the issues and the concerns that we have. So Tyler's going to tell you a little bit about what we do.
Just very quickly on the process, we've got the APIC homepage up here, just lsu.edu/APIC. We get our submissions through a web form. So this gold box on the bottom right, if you click on that box, a web form will pop up. You can tell us about your concern or the issue. You can submit things anonymously, or you can provide contact information. If we do have contact information, it allows us to maybe follow up with questions, but also provide responses to the issues. Once we get a concern, first we try to acknowledge its receipt, then we will invite the subject matter experts to the APIC committee to discuss the issue, provide us with background information, any remedies that have been implemented or could be implemented, and then it also gives the committee a chance to ask questions of those subject matter experts. So once the committee is satisfied with the resolution or whatever the solution to the issue is, we'll provide a response if we can, and wrap it up that way. We do keep track of the issues that come in, anything from fire alarms in classrooms to travel's a big one. We had a separate travel survey for a time, just collecting information on folks' travel concerns. But really anything that is concerning in terms of administrative processes, any roadblocks that faculty and staff are encountering, the committee is there to hopefully help facilitate resolution and information sharing. So as Ken mentioned, we've been getting fewer and fewer submissions, which hopefully means there are fewer and fewer issues, but we did want to make sure it was not just a lack of awareness. So thanks for allowing us the time today.
My pleasure. Any questions for Tyler or Jane?
Are you dealing with LSU 362, or is that another separate team?
We haven't had any submissions specific to LSU 360.
So please submit something.
Well, sometime a year ago.
Yes. Those of you who have bumps in the road with LSU 360, there's your opportunity.
Well, and I would say just specific to LSU 360, the Faculty Technology Center now has 3 or 4 people who are trained on LSU 360. I think they are now just the help desk. But anyway, Faculty Technology Center, is that the? the name of the group. Anyway, they have, yes, it's Faculty Technology Center. They, in ITS, and they have people who are trained in faculty 360.
And some colleges do have assistance in entering the data for you for that use in faculty LSU 360.
We're
Yeah.
trying to make that easier.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a while since we heard about the student advocacy and accountability, and some of you as faculty participate in some of those evaluation panels. So I invited Dr. Sanders and some of his staff to come and talk about advocacy and accountability, Tracy and Chelsea. And so they will address issues that you might have at the end. If it's a really strictly individual type issue, then they prefer to meet on an individual basis so that we can speed the meeting along. But today they're going to talk a little bit about just the overall viewpoint of what they actually accomplished in last year's annual report, and then address any immediate concerns. And then if we need to set up individual meetings with you and SAA staff, then they'll be glad to do that. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Ken, and great overview too. Well, we have the, thank you all for allowing us time to be here today. I have the pleasure and privilege working as the Associate Dean and Director of Student Advocacy Accountability. Been in this role for over 2 years, but I've been at LSU for 12. Previously, I advised attorneys on campus. I was the Assistant Dean in Greek Life. So I told folks if I can work with 700 new members and speak to them, that I can pretty much do anything on this campus, because that was an experience, right? Jokes aside, we're here to just update you a little bit about our processes, our procedures, talk about our statistics, things that you all need help with, and vice versa as well from a faculty perspective. So that's what we're going to kind of review today. And Chelsea, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Bickle, and I'm an assistant director in the office. And I primarily handle accountability cases.
Hey guys, I'm Tracy Blanchard. I've been at LSU for 10 years, almost 11, and I've been in this role for 3 years. I facilitate our behavioral intervention team called our CARE team, and I also work with students of concern, and I'm the associate director in SAA. Happy to be here.
Yes. So a little bit about our office, first and foremost. Raise your hand if you've ever referred a student to our office, maybe say in the past year or so. Raise your hand. Okay. Thank you for those referrals. We'll talk more about those in a bit. So our office, sometimes people refer to, especially students, as the principal's office. That is one component of us, because we do hold students accountable when they perhaps make a poor decision or poor choice. But I look at that poor choice or poor decision as an opportunity to engage with a student who may be making unhealthy decisions. Oftentimes when we see students making those decisions, they also maybe have some stuff going on in their personal lives, perhaps maybe impacting those decisions. So we also are a care component as well. So that's something Tracy will talk more about in a bit. We work with students in crisis, distress, or concern. We work with students who violate our behavioral misconduct, academic misconduct, student organization misconduct. We also work with student grievances. So anytime a student has a complaint about campus or about policies, procedures, whatever it may be, one of our staff specifically meets with that student and talks about respective processes that they can use to address their complaints or whatever it may be. And we also work with transfer students. That's a new initiative for our office, actually last March. We received a new staff member, Chelsea Bickle, who half-time, part-time of her role, strictly working with transfer student programs. The other part-time is helping us on the care side, which is another case we've seen in the past couple of years, has been increasing, which we'll show you that next, actually, 2 slides from now. One of the newest updates for you all is the Code of Student Conduct was updated this past spring, so spring 2018. It was good timing for us because of the Greek task force and the committee that Ken was on. They had some recommendations and changes that coincided great timing for us to be able to update the Code of Student Conduct. Some of the most major updates of this were an amnesty policy, something student government actually been working on for a couple of years, working with our office, wanting to initiate. The code revisions allowed us to actually put it in practice and put it actually in the policies and procedures, which we appreciated that. We updated the hazing and coercive behavior policy. Coercive behavior was brand new for us. It basically filtered out the hazing definition. What used to be lower level hazing is now termed coercive behavior. Moderate to upper level hazing is still hazing on this campus. The hazing definition actually matches that of the Max Gruber Act from this past summer, making hazing a crime now in the state of Louisiana. Our definition is in line with that of the states as well. So when we define hazing on this campus is also very similar to the way the state defines hazing from a criminal statute perspective. Student organization misconduct is also now part of the Code of Student Conduct. Used to be a separate policy, which didn't make sense to me because when you go to the Code of Student Conduct, you feel like you should find out all the process procedures as it relates to the code. And knowing now the student organization is part of that was a great benefit of that as well. Something we'll be working on this spring is a Know the Code campaign. So we're actually working with some folks who are assisting us with this, developing a campaign for students, faculty, and staff as well, to be aware of different parts of the code, different things they may not be aware of, especially during peak times when we see things occurring. So right before midterms, doing a big campaign on academic misconduct. Right before spring break, maybe talking about safety and alcohol and drug use and those types of things. Really timing out, being very specific, so we're making sure we're matching the educational campaign to that of what the students need and our constituents need across campus. Updated the code, it took 5 faculty, 5 students, and 5 staff. So I know Andrew's here, and a couple of folks represented the faculty a part of that piece, so it was a great initiative we were able to accomplish this past spring. Looking at our case stats, so we're big on statistics. We've done a lot of data mining over the past year, looking at historical data, which we'll talk about in a bit. You'll see, first and foremost, academic misconduct was on the rise. We had 967 cases this past year, so fall 2017, spring 2018. That went through up until July 31st, so that includes our summer cases from this past summer. We start our new year for stats on August 1st. You'll see there the yellow is student of concern. We'll talk more about it in a bit. We saw an increase there as well. Behavioral misconduct was kind of flat. We saw a slight rise in that. I think some of that was due to some high-profile incidents that occurred about a year and a half ago. You'll see the next number there, number 59, is our student grievances. And then organizational misconduct, which includes chapters and individual students who had issues related to organizational misconduct, is included the number of 41 there for us. Historically looking, we are missing some data, unfortunately, just digging through our files and so forth. We've compiled as much as we can, at least back to 2005. You'll see there that the academic misconduct spiked this past year compared to the previous year. Was actually greater than that in what we saw 2015 and 2016. Behavioral misconduct was a slight increase there. Students of concern, we saw also an increase this past year. And then grievances actually went down a bit from the first year we began hearing grievances. So don't really have a lot of historical data there because that only started about 2 years ago. Our department started handling those for the university. But again, just want to share this with y'all, kind of what we're seeing in trends and so forth. Cases by major or college, we feel like this might be helpful information for you all. So looking at your particular college, you can also see how many academic misconduct cases we had. That's the purple line. Behavioral misconduct is the gold. And then gray is student of concern. And something we want to do is overlay this with actually our student population. Where are we seeing not as many referrals from, depending on the college size? And how can we do a better job getting in front of faculty, staff, and perhaps the students in those areas to get reports, to get referrals? Because we don't think they have necessarily less issues. They may not necessarily know how to report those things. So again, I think it's a great chart here just showing the different colleges, of course. Some of our larger colleges are going to have more cases. We see more behavioral misconduct in UCFY, which is to be expected with some of our first-year students and those types of things. So again, just great data for us to look at. And now we're going to have Chelsea talk about our process.
Perfect. So I think it's helpful for you all to know if you do submit a report to us on the accountability side, what that looks like. So for students, they first receive a notice from us saying, hey, we've received a report. We want to have a meeting with you about it. So that student has an opportunity to know what charges are against them and come meet with their hearing officer to tell their side of the story. Once we get to that meeting, we learn more about the facts and kind of what happened. We might have more people that we need to follow up, other material observers. It just depends on the case, and also whether it's academic or behavioral or organization, whatever that might be. Then we get to a place of needing to figure out if a student is responsible or not. And we call that preponderance of the evidence, being able to get to that place, just kind of tipping the scale in either direction. And once we get to that place, a student then is given outcomes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But then at that point, a student has an opportunity, we don't call this an appeal at this stage, but a rehearing of the case to go to a university hearing panel. And in a couple minutes, we'll talk to you a little bit more about some things that we need your help with too. But we are always looking for faculty members to serve in that role because that's such an important piece of our process. So we rely on faculty a lot, instructors, TAs, whoever that might be, to report to us when there are cases of academic misconduct in the classroom or outside of the classroom as well. But then also being a person to help us adjudicate those cases, because that is in the code and we need your help with that. Wanting to share with you a little bit more about what our statuses look like. So anytime a student is found responsible, they are issued an accountability status, and this is kind of the breakdown for that. So warning is our lower level things. Typically that's like in a residence hall room, like a candle or something like that. Majority of those are disciplinary probation without restriction. So for you all, a first time academic violation, a student is typically assigned this status. Then we kind of go up through with restriction, deferred suspension, suspension, and expulsion. And wanting to share that piece with you too, that students are suspended when it gets to a certain level of behavioral misconduct. We've also had some academic cases that students might be repeat offenders, and then they would end up there as well. Then thinking a little bit more about the top academic charges, this has kind of changed throughout the years, but in this last year, copying was actually one of the highest levels of that. I think that comes from a couple different reasons, just from having conversations with students. So yes, that might be copying from your neighbor and just looking across at their paper, but it also could be in the form of using GroupMe or some other technology. Maybe that's Chegg or like other online resources as well. I've seen some head nods. So that could be from that, but I think it's interesting to kind of see what that looks like as far as a breakdown goes. Plagiarism is still in there as well, but I think we're seeing more of an increase in those unauthorized materials or copying from other students in that way. Then wanting to help you understand a little bit more too, if you're not as familiar with our office and our process, for a first-time academic violation for an undergraduate student, that's the top section up there. So like I was saying before, disciplinary probation without restriction for 2 semesters is typically kind of our baseline for all of this. This is our baseline that students might be assigned. There's also an opportunity for students to learn and grow from that experience, whether that had something to do with more of their ethics and decision making, or maybe they need to learn a little bit more about the code of conduct and what's in there, especially when it pertains to academics. Another piece is an academic transcript notation, again for 2 semesters, and then a 0 on the working question. So if we're talking about an exam, beyond the exam, we're talking about a homework assignment, we're talking about a forum post. I've seen lots of different things, but that's typically what our baseline looks like. And then for graduate students, you'll see that the outcomes are more severe. So that would be deferred suspension for a minimum of 2 semesters, a 0 on the working question, and dropping their overall letter grade as well. And again, things change. No 2 cases are the same, and so we really do work with the faculty members and have a conversation based on if there's any mitigating factors or anything like that. I think it's important for you all to know that we do take academic misconduct very seriously, but also want to give students that learning opportunity. So hopefully in that piece of educational outcome, they can learn from that.
We also do keep student conduct records for 7 years. That's something our office is in charge of. Unless a suspension or expulsion, we keep those in perpetuity, so forever. Just something for you all to know as well. Some of the trends we're seeing, and something actually Chelsea's done a lot of work on, being with Tiger TV and the Reveille and so forth, is GroupMe. We've had a lot of issues with that the past 2 years. If you Google GroupMe cases or GroupMe activist misconduct, you're going to see other cases, Ohio State, other folks who are having similar issues on that. Something students ask us is, should we not be in GroupMes? Well, no, you can be in GroupMes. That's not the issue. The issue is when there's active misconduct occurring in GroupMe, where you have a massive amount of people sharing information perhaps they shouldn't be sharing, and those kinds of things. We've had 2 or 3 cases this past fall, I believe, of GroupMe, and then last year we had several large cases with that. So seeing that continue on this campus. But we are hopefully doing some outreach to students to help them understand the correct way to use GroupMe and technologies such as that. Quizlets, old-fashioned exam cheating, paper mills, ghostwriting, we're seeing a lot more of that, I think. We're actually done some training on that through Turn It In, working with faculty, how can we catch ghostwriting, because it's very difficult to catch, especially if you have all outside the classroom writing assignments and those types of things. But we're really trying to work on some best practices to assist with that. Online tutoring or chat features, plagiarism, of course, by word switching, thinking that that's okay. And then passing down material through test files and those kinds of things. Something we've been working with actual student organizations on and education on. Actually, Chelsea's meeting with some groups next week about that to help be proactive in that area. Something we did this past year is also put together a faculty toolkit. So this is actually on our website. We took some focus group of some faculty who report quite a few folks to our office and said, hey, what are some information that would be helpful for you? What information did you need perhaps before you became familiar with our office or department? What are you hearing from your colleagues? So actually Rachel was a previous staff member of ours, put together a academic integrity toolkit where it has syllabus statements, plagiarism spectrum, best practices, test design, proctoring tips, resources for students, those types of things, and can be found on our website. If you go to faculty and staff, and then it's listed on the left toolbar there, it says faculty toolkit. It's a publication that pulls up, and we added that this summer actually to our website as a resource for you all. And I think you were next.
So this is another just snapshot screenshot of our webpage, and you can see the little box for LSU Cares with Mike the Tiger in it. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about LSU Cares as a whole, but I want to focus on student of concern reporting because really I think that's the one you guys are going to see the most. So there's several different types of reports. How many of you guys know what it means when I say LSU Cares? You familiar with the program? Yay, this is exciting. This is good. Y'all are awesome. Okay, so basically we have an online reporting system, and it's basically a wellness initiative for the well-being of our campus community, students, staff, and faculty. And so it's a reporting system, and we have several different types of reports. So the one I want to focus on is student of concern. So this is a student that may be in crisis or distress, or it may be a student who you see different signs that concern you. And so these are some of examples of the reasons why, or the types of reports that we might receive, and some of the issues, and they may be having a combination of these issues. And the ones that are in yellow are the ones we see most frequently. We do, like Jonathan said, we do like our numbers. We do want to know what our students need and what they're not getting, and what the holes in our services are, so that we can tailor our outreach to fit the needs of our campus community, right? So for the past several years, like I said, I've been in this particular position for 3 years, and in the 3 years I've been here, these particular areas in yellow have only gone up each semester. What did I do? There we go. So we do look at presenting concerns. When a student comes in with a concern, we kind of monitor and look at each semester what those trends are. And unfortunately, they've actually been very similar every semester. But one of our largest areas, and it's sort of a catch-all, we call it wellness concern. And what that means is a student who is having anxiety or depression, they're having symptoms that's keeping them from performing, they may have chronic absences, they may have what we call a deterioration from a state of stability, which is a student who normally performs well, comes to class, gives good quality work, and then you notice they come to class disheveled and the quality of their work begins to decline, or you might notice that they stop attending or attend sporadically. That's a case that we would consider a wellness case. Wellness also encompasses disruptive or odd behavior. You know, sometimes we get behavior that's overtly disruptive. Sometimes it's a lower level of disruption, and sometimes we don't know what's going on with the behavior. It's odd or disturbing or just unusual behavior. The biggest trend that I have seen so far working in this office, which really shocked me, was the number of students on campus who lose a main family member while they're here on our campus. So every semester that number seems to go up, and these are verified deaths. I get the death certificates, I see the obituaries, and this is loss of mother, father, brother, sister. And so death of family member and usually death of friend is a very high category for us. So lots of grief and trauma issues that we see on our campus. Hospitalization was the next largest category, and that would be either physical or psychiatric hospitalizations. I parsed these out when I do my own statistics, but this is just kind of a big overview. Other is another pretty large section because it encompasses all these other smaller categories that didn't rise enough to the level to be its own category. So it might be something like having difficulty in your academic performance due to a disability. It might be financial concerns. It might be food insecurity. So all those things are represented. If you guys ever want to have a conversation about what those look like, I'm happy to do that. How many of you guys have a red folder? If you don't, I brought extra. We also brought our business cards. And I would also like to encourage you guys, if ever you have a question or you want to make a report but you're not sure what type of report, or you want to talk it through, if you're, I'm a person, I like to talk clearly. So if you want to talk it through before you put it in writing, I'm absolutely fine with that. My direct number is on my business card. I'm on the 3rd floor of the Union in the Dean of Students office. I'm literally the first office that you come to. These guys are across the hall from me. I am more than happy to sit down and have a conversation if you're concerned about a student, if you want to come talk to your classes. We do that very frequently. We make lots of presentations to faculty and staff, particularly for students who are being disruptive or students of concern or pattern of behavior that we see. Those are all things that you guys can request and let us know if you'd like us to do that. We can also come to classes and talk to students about LSU Cares, which I spend a lot of my time doing that because I find that face-to-face contact with students actually brings them into our offices much more frequently. So our red folders, we develop our red folders and we disseminate them to new faculty and current faculty and staff. And we are in the process of revamping that because we did it 3 years ago when I first came into this position, and it's time to do more. So we want to hear from you guys some of the things you would like to see in those folders. I mean, clearly, we know some of the things that need to be in those folders, but we're looking at other universities and looking at what they have in their student concern folders and what would be helpful and a helpful guide to faculty. So if you have a suggestion or if there's something not in the folders that you would like to see, I would love to know that. I would also love to know if you guys make a student of concern report and you don't get a response, a personalized response. So when you make a report, you're going to get an automated response that say we got your report. But you should hear from myself or Eddie or Alyssa, my coworkers who work with students of concern. And we may not be able to share with you personal or confidential information as a student, but we do share that we've reached out. We do share some concerns that we have, and we do view it as a partnership. So we might even tell you, hey, we have an appointment with them tomorrow, but we want you to look for X, Y, and Z and let us know if you see these things. So we are really here to work with you guys as well, because working with you, it helps our students and we help one another, and then we're here for the betterment of the community. So I would like to know if you guys have any revisions that you would like to see. So transfer student programs is another area that's in our office, and that's a new thing this year. So we do have Alyssa Jacobs, who is our transfer specialist, and she does do care cases as well as transfer student programming. So she does our transfer student leadership institute. She also had how many people at the luncheon? 126 transfer students for spring. We had a luncheon for them at orientation, so we're getting lots of good contacts with our transfer students, but we also know that characteristically transfer students have different issues when they come to our campuses than some of our other students, and so we want to make sure we're meeting the needs of all of our students.
I think for us, also just to mention this piece is that this is a partnership, right? So first and foremost, we know that as faculty, you are the eyes and ears of campus. You see students on a regular basis. You know when someone's off, maybe not themselves, that sort of thing. And that's what we want to hear from you. We want to hear about those things. Some of you have made reports, and some of the faces in the room, I know you all, but I've maybe not met you in person, but I've talked to you on the phone because you've shared some information with us. And we want to be able to intervene before it becomes an issue or problem to where we're having perhaps different discussions with that student or different plans moving forward to be successful, those kinds of things. Anytime you feel like a student is just not themselves, for whatever reason it may be, we want you to make a report. And we keep that information. We reach out to them from a CARES perspective. We can't necessarily make students meet with us, but we do at least send them information and resources they don't meet with us, so at least they have access to it, resources they can access with them. If it's a code of conduct issue, then we're also going to look at that as well. I think we have a little bit more stringent mechanisms to get them to meet with us because they have a conduct outcome perhaps that may be in their student record when we go through that process. But oftentimes we're in the gray area. When I receive reports, about 90% of those reports come to my dashboard. Only ones that don't come to us is academic intervention team. So if you make an academic intervention team report, those reports do not come to student action accountability. That goes to Nanette Cheatham and her team that she works with. But the other reports come to us. So when we're looking at students, you may be reporting a student for odd behavior, but also we may also receive a report for active misconduct for that student or behavioral misconduct. So now we're putting that story together. What is truly going on in the students' lives? How can we help them? How can we assist? If there's code of conduct issues, we're going to hold them accountable. But also, how do we support them and make sure they're successful long-term on this campus, if that's the case? Sometimes we do have to cut bait, and they can't be successful in this environment. This is not an environment for them to be successful. They need a different environment to be successful. So that's when we get to a suspension or perhaps expulsion with a student on this campus. But you know what? That's okay. And I look at it from a positive perspective. Even our students who we suspend, I talk about next steps. What's your plan moving forward? Where could you transfer to? Who will take a student who is suspended from LSU and be able to work on perhaps degree credits to maybe to transfer back, if that's an opportunity? If not, what's your ultimate goals and how can you still maybe meet those, even if it's not at LSU? So just looking at it from that perspective, you all are an integral part of that piece because you all see those students on a daily basis. University hearing panels, we actually sent out 496 friends on Tuesday. Got an email from me, so I don't know if any of you those folks are in the room or not. But if you report a case to our office in the past year, I sent you an email on Tuesday saying, hey, Thank you for submitting a student of concern or academic misconduct or behavior misconduct report. Well, we need faculty to serve on our university hearing panels. Our pool has gotten kind of low. We didn't have as much interest this past year, so some of our friends who are on our UHPs have been doing extra service and work in that area, so we need more faculty to serve that. And to make quorum, we have at least one faculty and one student have to be on the panel. So you all are an integral part of that because we don't have quorum without a faculty member being a part of that piece. So we need you in that way. If you are interested at all, Chelsea's the person to email, and she can get you the link for training and so forth. We're going to talk about it, set up a time to meet with one of us, and we can talk about what that experience looks like. Also, the Accountability Advisors Program, that's something Eddie St. Bill handles from our office. That is also working kind of on the flip side. When a student is going through our process, they get to have an advisor present with them. If they don't have an advisor, maybe that's their parents or their perhaps attorney or whoever it may be, they can request an advisor through our office. And that person typically is someone who's trained on our processes, procedures, what to expect, and they can sit down with that student and talk about the expectations, what to expect from a hearing panel, what to expect when they meet with Chelsea about an academic misconduct case. It really helps set them up for success for that meeting and help navigate that process with the students. So we have about 12 to 13 folks right now who are signed up to assist that, and we've had a couple folks unfortunately leave LSU recently. They were serving that capacity, so we're also looking for more folks to serve in that capacity as well. Eddie St. Bill is a person to email if you're interested in that opportunity as well. We also just need faculty to pitch around ideas, committees, think tanks, the red folder, those types of things. If you're saying like, hey, I may not have enough time to commit to one of those opportunities, but I don't mind being a sounding board and giving a faculty perspective. Here's my contact information. I have a running list of kind of folks that we've pulled upon in the past. Oftentimes those are people who report to our office a great deal, but it doesn't have to be that. You can be new to LSU and just have a different perspective, and that's okay. Because every perspective is valued, and we wanted to hear those perspectives. So again, those are ways that you all can get involved with our office and our department. And ultimately, we're here to support you and our students on this campus. I think we all have the same mission in mind. We want students to be successful and go on and do great things beyond LSU. But we're here to work together as a team in order to do that. So here's our contact information. Just a general office, as Tracy said, we're on the 3rd floor. Dean of Students and Student Advocacy Accountability offices, our staff is split between those two offices. On the 3rd floor, kind of the back of the staircase area, feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email, whatever it may be. Happy to talk with you all about whatever you're seeing, concerns, and how to get involved in our office and those types of things. So now I think we're here to open up for questions that you all may have about our processes, procedures. If you have a question about a specific case, why don't you email us about that, and I can actually look it up and actually talk about and actually know what I'm talking about with that type of thing. But what questions you all have or feedback or things you're seeing you'd like to let us know about, that would be helpful for us to hear that from you all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so faculty members and faculty of kinesiology, we have some questions concerning faculty allowed to appeal any decisions regarding the decisions that you all make, for one. And we understand that you guys are perhaps understaffed, so it got back to us that GAs are adjudicating decisions without supervision from you all. Is that common?
Well, the grad assistants report to me, so they are supervised. So that may be misinformation. Happy to connect back to that faculty member to talk to them about that. But we would love to have more professional staff. Unfortunately, that's not our funding model. We do have grad assistants who do hear cases for our office in times of midterms and finals. We're all hands on deck because we're actually still adjudicating cases from the fall. We have not wrapped those up, and we will be doing those probably for the next 2 weeks or so, unfortunately. But happy to talk more about that piece, but we do have grad assistants hearing cases, just as TAs are teaching classes and other professional capacities on this campus. The first comment was about can a faculty appeal the decision? Not in our process. That is not in the process. The faculty cannot appeal the decision piece. That was not something that went to the last revisions or edits, but happy to put in our list of things to discuss at future times that Code of Student Conduct edited to look at that. I don't know of any peers that have a faculty appeal, but if you do know of any other peer institutions, especially at state public institutions, I'd like to know that. The faculty member I had a discussion with at Kearney, I think it was University of Houston previously, said they did not have an appeal process there that I think that they were aware of. But happy if there's other places out there. Chelsea and I are going to our national conference in about 3 weeks, so we can definitely pitch that around and see if that's a procedure or process that's out there. Like I said, if the outcome is not, if the student does not agree with the outcome, a faculty member is a part of the hearing panel process. It has to be a part of the process for us and a student for that piece. But great questions.
Have we had any cases yet where somebody's claiming medical amnesty? Do we have the information on it? Has that been effective?
So I'm doing data right now, but I know we've had a couple of cases. We had a student organization case related to hazing with the amnesty piece because it was medical and also non-medical. So it falls into the non-medical category of the Code of Student Conduct. We've had 1 or 2 residential life cases that fell into the medical category that I know of, but I need to we added a tag so we can track it now, look at that piece, but I've got that on my calendar actually Tuesday to look at that data because I've got to go to a committee I think Kim's a part of in a couple of weeks where I'm presenting that information, but we have had a couple of folks, we have used it, which is good. We want people doing the right thing, we want them calling 911, getting assistance for their friend or themselves whenever they are in need. So we worked that out, and I think our first case happened like really the second week of school. We're like, all right, well here we go. This is our test case, right? This is kind of how we get to work that out. But we've had it from an organization perspective, and we've had it from an individual student perspective as well.
I think too, it goes hand in hand with our Know the Code campaign. If they don't know amnesty is here, they won't use it. So clearly we have to get the message out to our students of what that looks like.
And we're going to do a better job of that.
I don't know if jumping before someone. So I commend you for your interest outreach and support to our students, because I think everybody is on that page, I would imagine. But a couple of things, I'm a social worker, so I'm interested that your office is both the accountability piece and also the crisis trauma-informed, hopefully responsive piece. And I probably have more of a commentary than a question, but we know that mental health services is really over-capped right now, right? So LSU Mental Health, it's very, very busy. Am I, that's right here. So when we get a student who's suicidal, which we probably all had cases like this, right? We might not know immediately that there might be some mental health issues. A, who's responding to these people? And isn't it kind of a risk even for your level of workload to say you can take all these cases on in the most crisis-driven cases, and we're hearing that sometimes you're not able to because of the sheer numbers. So is it a service to our students? I'm sometimes circular with this, but I mean, I think it's great, and I love it, and you guys are wonderful. Of course, I have an opinion about like trained people in the most kind of rigorous, thorny cases.
And we're not providing counseling. I think that may be a misconception.
Yeah. What do you do?
So essentially, we're connecting. I'm a really well-educated resource connector. So when a student, let's say, they have an issue, a mental health issue, and they call mental health, and the mental health tells them I can't get in for 3 months.
Right.
I can see the student. I can talk to mental health. I can evaluate them as an LPC, as a counselor, to see what their needs are, how critical it is. I can walk them over myself. I can contact John Otzenberger, who's also part of our behavioral intervention team, and I can say, hey, the student really needs to be seen. You know, what do we need to do here? Because they've never told me no, number one, and number two, they have a great walk-in, system, and you can walk students over there too. Now, we are not meant for acute distress. So in other words, if a student is in your office and they are volatile, saying they're going to harm themselves or others, or any behaviors that would lead you to believe they are, a harmful person, you call 911. Or you call LSUPD, or you use the Shield app on your phone. And that's some of the things I'm going to be addressing in the red folder to kind of give you guidance on when do I do this and when do I do that. What's helpful is to make your student of concern report after that, so I can follow up and make sure they got connected. And I talk to the local hospitals and the partner programs as well to make sure when they come back into LSU that we know, and we know this has happened. So I don't have a student who's been hospitalized for their first psychiatric incident, and they're coming back on campus all by themselves and not knowing to go register with disability services, and not having good follow-up care, and their faculty have no idea why they were out for 2 weeks, and they don't want to disclose that to them. So these are the kind of things that we spend a lot of time doing, is connecting students, making sure they're staying connected, make sure they're continuing to go to the mental health center, and making sure that we can be preventative and get them on the right track, because they're obviously here for their academics. So
you are a trained professional.
Yes, I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I've run a psychiatric facility. I've ran a psychiatric for many, many years. However, I don't do long-term counseling with students, I do intervention. So if a student does come to us in crisis, which we do have pretty frequently, a lot of students just walk in. I mean, we don't have any context, we don't know the student, they just come into our offices and disclose some pretty concerning things.
Is that where you are?
Yes, I'm actually across the hall, and part of the separation of that is so that students, will not associate the negative accountability consequences with the advocacy. So our advocacy staff is actually, Eddie's office is by me now. Alyssa is in the accountability office. She does part transfer and part care because we just didn't have the space to put her in the dean of students office as well.
We'll talk later, but should we partner with social work? I mean,
we do work with a lot of social work faculty. We do go speak to the social work department, and we actually have a counseling intern from our master's in counseling program, which we've also had in the past. So maybe you and I could chat later, and I can kind of show you.
Yeah, I don't mean to be like the one-house woman senator. But what do you tell people like me that feel like we can handle our own accountability stuff? Like, I'll just be honest that I review, like probably a lot of people, we review articles in newspapers. We review, I mean, am I right? Like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm by myself. I'm all by myself. You guys never have.
You're all by yourself, little lady.
Come on, man, that is just not true. That's baloney. So, I think it's important that students are accountable. But shouldn't we change the way we teach if they're, like if none of them are expelled, which I'm not, like in that last slide, there was 0 that.
Two expulsion. This is 0% because of the percentage of.
Oh, it was 2, but 2 out of 1,000.
38 suspensions, I think.
So what do you tell like a skeptic? And I'm a skeptic even in my own department. So they feel like, oh my God, this looks like plagiarism, I'm going to send it over immediately. Instead of me saying, listen, this looks like a terribly written paper, and I'm really annoyed with the way you pulled this website and put it in the front. But I don't always send it over. And one of the things is I don't want you to have to deal with 17 cases from my class alone.
We're okay.
Bring it.
Yeah, we
You
want it. The reason we want it because it's patterns of behavior. They may have had that one incident with you. They may have 3 other incidents with us.
I could be actually viewed as like a person perpetuating this behavior, so I have to be careful. Okay.
But I think we want to document. We also want to make sure the educational intervention, and certainly you can have conversations after we go through our process, that sort of thing with the students. And if there's exercise or activities, that's where we talk with the faculty. We say, this is what we're looking at. What are you seeing? That sort of stuff to work those things out. We have some prescribed outcomes we have to be consistent with and making sure, but there's also flexibility there too. Like if you want to rewrite a paper to get partial credit, and you feel very strongly about that, so getting a 0 for the working question, we're going to have a conversation about that and talk about why that may be important.
I mean, I've seen a lot of tears and they're afraid of you really are where the bugs.
And we want to make sure also they have due process. So the Dixon case versus the Alabama State Board of Education back in 1960s, during the Civil Rights era, dictated due process for students on college campuses across the country, especially those that are public institutions. So we make sure that they're getting notice and the opportunity to be heard. We never don't want to be in a lawsuit where we said we penalize a student without giving them due process because we have no leg to stand on them. Because we didn't give them a federal mandate requirement to give them that opportunity. That's we're trained in that, and not say that you aren't trained in that, but that's where our...
I shouldn't be behaving differently than so I hear that. That's good.
No, but
I like it.
Again, setting ourselves up for success, big picture, I think.
Thank you.
Yes.
I had 2 things. One was basically to kind of echo that first point about mental health and kind of them being overwhelmed. And I realize it's above your pay grade, but I'm my department's director of graduate studies, and I mean, I went to therapy for the first time as a graduate student. I would say graduate school is a sufficient condition for therapy in other governments. And I've had many graduate students come to me who are seeking therapy, and we no longer provide health insurance for our graduate assistants, and the wait lines for help. I mean, I guess it's disturbing that a student needs to be suicidal in order to see a therapist in a timely fashion. And I realize that's bigger than LSU cares, but I just kind of want to vocalize that is a concern for graduate students as well as, I'm sure, other graduate students.
We have a lot of support groups for graduate students and emotional wisdom seminars that sometimes will really help a student not have to even enter into therapy, but in their lecture styles, it's not like group therapy where you have to talk. But we do see a number of graduate students. We have a graduate representative on our care team as well. And we have a student health coordinator. I don't know if you're aware of that, but you can see her and she can plug you into the community very quickly, whether it's through Baton Rouge Mental Health, it could, depending on what insurances they do or don't have, what the needs are. So there are a lot of services that we can get them pretty quickly, even if it's not through our own mental health center. So please let me know when that comes up, because I'm more than happy to give you some resources if they don't want to come through me even. So no worries there.
Cool, yeah, and to be clear, part of my motivation for bringing that up was because I was curious if there were just things I didn't know about and things I didn't know about.
I think there's little gyms all around, right? Like there's like services, there's so many different things on campus and off campus, and we have, you know, good relationships with our community. So there's family services where you can bring your student ID and be seen by counselor for $20. They have Saturday appointments. Our bus system will take you to Baton Rouge Mental Health, which is our capital area Government Street location. It's first come, first served. You can see a counselor and a psychiatrist there. And they, although they see a lot of people, you tend to wait like you're in a acute care little crisis center for, not crisis center, what am I trying to say, Advocare. Yeah, clinic, you know how you go in and you have to wait and you see like so many people in front of you and you're sick and you're just waiting. So it's kind of similar to that. But there are different times where they're less busy than others, and that's when I send students there, I give them that tip. I'm like, hey, go on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock because they don't have any people there at that time.
What's the facility?
It's a capital area, and so it's, I always refer to Baton Rouge Mental Health because years ago that's what it's called.
The big house, it's the big one on Government Street, but they're really overwhelmed.
They are.
They're seeing the most chronic and acute cases in the state.
And with no insurance most of the time. So, yeah, but there's family services, there's family roads, there's lots of programs out there. And I mean, yes, we don't have enough mental health care in the city or in the state for that matter, but there are solutions, you know, that we can do.
I'll pull up our graphic again just to show we are seeing grad students. Again, the student of concern piece, you see that proportionally is much higher than the behavioral or, of course, academic misconduct. So similar, we see grad students for that reason.
And international students who don't have insurance and don't have resources, that's an issue too.
Yeah. And my second concern, and I guess that speaks to kind of specific populations, and I'm also a member of the LGBTQ+ staff and faculty caucus, and several queer and transgender students have come to us and told us that they feel that the resources at LSU are ill-equipped to deal with these specific. Because, I mean, just like transfer students or international students, queer and trans students experience campus in a very different way. And I wonder if in the past y'all have been in contact with student groups such as Spectrum. I mean, the caucus, we're like brand new, so if you wonder how much you have to talk to us. But just generally, I've heard from enough queer and trans students to sense that that community on campus does not feel that kind of the available services speak to their unique needs.
We know statistically speaking, attempts for suicide, those types of things, proportionally higher for that community as well.
Yeah.
So we're looking at, we work with Wes Heath over there in Office of Multicultural Affairs, talking about services support. One of our things we talked about as a staff, what student groups do we be in front of? So Spectrum and some of those groups need to be the ones on our agenda for this upcoming spring, know the code, resources, those types of things. Trying to...
I was just going to say, multicultural affairs, we have women, the Women's Center, Summer Shive, she's on our care team, and we work very closely with her. So we definitely recognize that that's an area that may not feel comfortable coming to see me in my office, and so we've really tried to, because we've heard that as well, so we've really tried to do some things to open some doors there. So if you can give us time or feedback that might be helpful to get in front of the communities, I would be more than happy to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Sanders and crew? One of the things is they do have an annual report that they publish, so if you're into lots of data, there's a lot of data, facts and figures and graphs and charts. They are granular enough that they know which countries or which types of individuals have the most difficulties, so they're able to address and direct what limited resources they have to those concerns. One of the things that is floating around for some of us is there's a pilot program in humanities and social sciences to actually help freshmen to understand what it's like to be a college student and what our expectations are. This is above and beyond the orientation that we have, and if that program proves and the preliminary data indicates it is successful, then we may try to expand that to more colleges so students immediately know what is cheating and what's not, what is plagiarism and what's not. And if it's discipline oriented, then they'll actually know some of the expectations for the academic progress that they should be making, not just the grade in class, but how do you actually get things done and what resources aren't available and what resources are available to help them do that. So we're hoping that that pilot program actually has the continued success that it appears to be initially, so then we can actually expand that on a university basis. It all comes back to, if we don't know those students and how they're performing, then how do we retain them and how do we graduate them so that we increase our rates in both areas. So again, there are lots of, and I don't want to use that term holistic, although it is, we're taking an overall viewpoint in how do we help the students to be successful in everything that they do here at LSU. And one of the areas that we're probably deficient in is identifying those students who have psychological or mental or just, I don't know how to cope problems. How do we identify them early enough so that we can help? And that's always going to be a concern.
Thank you for your time. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Next item on the agenda is Dean Wilder from Libraries, and I'm not even going to think about trying to identify all of the staff that he's brought with him today. However, don't be discouraged by what he says, because he's brought all the staff and they'll be standing with their buckets at the exit so that you can donate on the way out.
He's so used to me asking for money, and that's actually the opposite of what I'm going to do today. He can be forgiven for guessing that way. Thank you so much for giving me a slice of time to talk to you. You cannot imagine how important this is for us in the library. I'm also, as Ken says, I'm very grateful to the incredible turnout of library people that I have here today, insofar as these people have put in many hours in putting together the proposal that I'm going to talk to you about today. I am so fortunate. We're all so fortunate to have such great colleagues. On the other hand, I have given them all permission to interrupt me and correct me in midstream if I misspeak. So if there was anything here that doesn't work, it's on me as opposed to them. All right, so I'm here today to talk to you about a fairly radical proposal relative to how we go about getting access to Elsevier journal content. I'm going to start, just in case there's anybody here who is not aware that there is now at this point, a 25-year-old serial cost crisis that's affecting higher education. I know that this is a complicated graph. The only things I want the points I want to make here is that this is data from the Association of Research Libraries, so we're talking about major research institutions in the US and Canada, so we're talking about a national problem. This is not a problem isolated to LSU. And you can also see from the journal expenditure line there that this line is absolutely unsustainable. Nobody's budget, nobody anywhere, any nationally, internationally, nobody's budget goes up as fast as this goes up. And just because we've got this 1990 to 2014 timeline here, you should not expect that 20 years from now that line is going to continue. It can't do it. It's not sustainable. In fact, I'm going to go on record here to say that 2019 is going to be a watershed year, whether LSU does something radical relative to Elsevier or not, because there are so many initiatives happening all over the world relative to the unsustainability of this content. All right, so you've got this national, international problem, but it also has a local LSU a component in here. What I'm going to draw your attention to, this is a 10-year period, 2008, 2017. in a period in which the serial expenditures as a portion of the library's total budget doubles from 24% to 48%, wherein it's pretty well the case that the money that has gone into to support our serial list is coming from absolutely every other aspect of our operation. It means fewer FTE, that's why the salary line is down. The other portion is equipment and programs and services. Books going from 10% to 7%. 10% was inadequate. 7% is inadequate. This year, LSU is going to be spending less than a third of the median for SEC institutions on books. This is absolutely unacceptable. We cannot continue to operate in this way. And the story here is that the lack of control, lack of flexibility on journal subscriptions has eaten into our capacity to support the book-bound disciplines at the institution. All right. Why am I talking to you now? There's another level of urgency around this, and the first piece of it is that we are in the very last year of a 5-year Elsevier contract. It runs through the end of this calendar year in such a way that if LSU wishes to go ahead and re-up for Elsevier, we need to make this decision and do the negotiation this summer. I want to be able to do that, having given us the entirety of this spring semester to talk with faculty, especially STEM faculty, about this decision. At the end of this current 5-year contract, this time next year, the dollar value of our Elsevier contract will be $2 million per year. So obviously, this is a very big deal. The decision as to whether we re-up for another 5 years, this is a very big deal. Another thing that happens to sort of coincidentally is that there have been some new technologies that have become available that have given us the opportunity to provide faster access, document delivery access to journal content in general, Elsevier in particular. It's so much faster that it gives us a credible alternative to the journal subscription system. So those are the things that have led us to wish to begin talking with you all right now. Let me just tell you how this proposal would work. First of all, I want to make it clear that we are about 12 to 18 months behind the model that we've used for this proposal in the form of Florida State University. In this case, this is a very good thing that we're following them because they've managed to work out all sorts of best practice kinds of techniques that have already saved us an enormous amount of time and I think given us a better chance of success. So we're going to be following pretty well the model that Florida State is in the process of working through now. So what does the process involve? The basis of this is to take the entirety of our 300 Elsevier subscriptions, sort them in descending order by use at LSU over the past year, and then count down that list until you reach a value of $1 million. So what that means in the case of our Elsevier subscriptions is that we get down to a number of about 160 subscriptions that we are proposing to retain out of a list of over 1,000, retaining about 150 or 160 titles that account that have the highest level of use. So of that 1,000 list title, I want to say that if we had sorted this, if you're looking to see at what point we reach 50% of use in that list, you're only going to get down to about 200 or 220, something around in that sphere there. What I'm trying to say is that use among Elsevier journals is very heavily skewed toward just a few journals. And those journals cost $8,000, $10,000, $13,000 per subscription, which is how you get 165 titles equaling $1 million of expenditure. All right. The next piece is that we have this new technology that allows us to dramatically improve the document delivery turnaround time for things that we do not subscribe to now. And then having saved something like $1 million in serial costs, what happens to those monies? The first thing that happens is to pay for the additional document delivery costs. There are costs associated with doing the proposal we're talking about, and of course we have to put some money there. We also have I think, an obligation to restore funding that has been sort of eaten away in the book budget to do a better job of supporting those book-bound disciplines. Another thing that we can do with this money is to do a thing that we haven't done at LSU and nobody can remember, and that is to say, to entertain ideas for new subscriptions or new databases or new streaming services that we could add without cutting something else. That is the way this institution has operated for decades. If you want a new subscription, you find another one that we can cut of equal or greater value, and that's how that happens. What that means is that over the course of time, the drift in terms of research agenda at the institution, the difference, the gap between the resources that we have to support our the teaching and research grows larger and larger, and I'd love to be able to have a pool of money to help us close that gap. All right. Let me give you a quick idea about how this might affect your day-to-day work. On the left-hand side, there's approximately we just picked out 4 major ways that people find citations to, let's say, Elsevier content, Web of Science, Science Direct, Google Scholar, Library Discovery Search is basically our website. You link to Elsevier's site and quickly find out whether we own it or not. If in the current process, if we have it now, you get it instantaneously, obviously. If we don't have it, then you move over to the library's website and do interlibrary loan, where the turnaround time is something between 24 to 48 hours, he said, looking at his interlibrary loan director and hoping for approval on that point.
I would say about 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. So when we establish benchmarks for how we expect our program to work, we will be more precise than this. And I think we'll probably use kind of a nuclear half-life kind of measure, because there are many factors relating to how fast we get things that are not under our control. So as much as we put into our own processes, there will be some uncertainty on that. All right. So here we have the current process. The proposed process looks almost the same. The difference is that, well, I have to say that the no, we've made sure that the no is a bigger square this time, because we don't want to sugarcoat this. This proposal amounts to a fairly large cancellation. On the other hand, we now have an expedited document delivery service that can deliver articles within about 2 hours, and that's about 2 hours from the time that you press a button to say that you want to get that article. So it could be the weekend, or it could be late at night, and that's the kind of turnaround you get with the faster version of the document delivery that we have to offer. With the slower version, essentially amounts to the system that we have now, where we have deliver articles, and again, about 24 to 48 hours. So the essence of what you end up giving up in this system is the turnaround time for the subscriptions that we no longer maintain. That's the thing you give up. Is that essential to your work? This is the thing that we hope to establish in terms of talking with you over the course of the next semester. All right, so the next steps. What I want out of you, first of all, is, I know that this is not a thing that we can do today, but ideally I would like to have a Faculty Senate resolution in support of the approach that we took here. This is a thing that Florida State used to enormous success. They were able to get there a unanimous vote of the Faculty Senate in support of going forward, and that facilitated the next piece, which is that we're all looking in the libraries for opportunities to connect with faculty in groups or individually, especially STEM faculty, so that we can talk through this system and try to establish the extent to which this will impact your work, how we can make the system work better, or maybe we scrap the thing altogether. I also want to have a faculty committee charged to doing the advising and helping us with the communication. We have been talking in terms of having the Faculty Senate Library Committee serve in this way. They appear to be agreeable to doing that. I'd be delighted because the folks, we have great people in this group. I think we need more people.
I was going to make a solution.
Absolutely, so that's fine. We want to be able to be working with a faculty committee that can help us in designing the process as it goes forward. Great, that's the entirety of my proposal in a very much overview sort of way. If you have questions or comments, I'd be happy to entertain them. Yes?
Has Florida State experienced any pushback from Elsevier about cutting that many journals? Have they increased the prices on the remaining journals, or
well, they
what's
certainly
likely to do?
They've gotten pushback from Elsevier. Elsevier's not happy, so what? But on the other hand, the thing that they have done is that for people who serve in editorial or advisory capacities with their journals, they have gone to Florida State faculty to lobby against this approach. And I'm again having this, I'm sort of speaking for Florida State here, but they've done that to almost no effect. So,
Stanley, from the point of view of the research office, we see significant numbers of publications that are mandated by the funding agencies to be open access. Have you considered, or has Florida State considered, that maybe among the top one or a few of those journals, they might be virtually all available instantaneously via the open access route? And could that, as people thought through the logic of that some fraction of these things are mandated by NIH, for instance, to be out there and available free of charge?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the case. There virtually any agency that does more than something like $10 million worth of grants is sort of an obligation to publish simultaneously or exclusively in an open access journal. So that's a piece of what makes this kind of proposal possible. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that that is going to serve for the incredible amount of use that top 160 journals is going to have. That is to say, there's going to be all sorts of articles that are just simply not available in open access way. Another thing I didn't put on this list, but we certainly will be doing within the library is to be continuing to organize and advocate for open access publishing to make sure that our researchers understand the cost dynamics and the quality dynamics that speak to open access publishing, because we are not talking about putting LSU research in inferior journals. We're talking about high-quality, peer-reviewed journals like PLOS One, for example. I mean, there's lots of them out there, and so the idea that we're sort of using this as an opportunity to raise awareness of publishing options that faculty have, that's a good thing that can come of this. Yeah.
Hi, so I'm from the Department of Oceanography and Coastal Sciences. So it's kind of specialized, the types of journals that we're interested in, and some of them are probably in the top 100. But I was wondering about, would journals or Elsevier negotiate a limited access for a smaller number of people, or is it have to be all LSU? Is it per person access? How do they?
Well, I can tell you that we in the library only license for the entirety of the LSU community. And one reason we do that is that even in small disciplines, the amount of use that journals get from folks outside that discipline, it's really important. I mean, it's a large number. So, you know, if it's a math journal, you can be sure that it's going to get used from 20 other disciplines, and to such a degree that if you were to get into subscribing for a small part of the university, you're just spiting yourself. Am I answering your question? Yeah.
I find that Iliad system is fantastic.
Thank you. An endorsement for our interlibrary loan sale. Let me just say this: that part of the obligation that we would feel on our side is making sure that we have put whatever resources we need to put in order to accommodate any increase in volume of transactions. Because we're going to end up with this process promising a turnaround time, and we're going to meet it. We'll do whatever it takes in terms of adding additional resource or staffing to make sure that this works. In the back.
Lauren, can you stand up?
Yeah, this is okay. I have only philosophical question. So, Elsevier's job is to extract the background from the university, right? All universities. What's going to stop them from, you know, oh, we see everybody wants us to 110, 150 journals. Instead of $10,000, which is going to charge them 15 or 20, and now we're still going to charge them $2 million. Right. So is there something that can be done to prevent that?
I'll tell you what, Elsevier is going to be under this year, they're going to be under an incredible amount of strain in terms of their market share, and it's not going to come from the top 160 that we do. Us in Florida State, there's plenty of other institutions and countries, entire countries. So, look, I don't know the answer to this question. What would or could Elsevier do to retaliate? I'll tell you one thing that the academic community can do to retaliate. Just this week, we had a lovely example of an important informatics journal wherein the entire editorial board up and rebelled, and they went and formed their own open access journal. They left that former journal, and they did it because of exactly these issues that we're talking about. So, you know, I just think that there's a growing wave, a kind of organ rejection relative to Elsevier that they're going to have to contend with.
I'll just reemphasize that. I'm in physics, and in the last 5 years, people have just been relentlessly moving away when possible. You can't always do it. Some of the journals are very eminent and need them, but a lot of times you don't. And there's more and more movement that way for exactly this reason.
That's right. Elsevier as a corporation has a profit margin of over 36%. That makes them a better corporation than Apple and Microsoft and almost every other corporation you can imagine. They get that 36% because we give them stuff and then pay them to back and give it back to us. Whatever. Who else?
That website that should not be named, that we often use.
Oh,
instantaneous signing.
Oh, sign up.
So, should we avoid that and use interlibrary loans as a mechanism? Does that help you at all? Or does it matter?
Do you think LSU faculty use Sci-Hub is like the Napster of scholarship? I mean, it's all pirated.
It's easier to get it from that often than the journal, even if you have access.
Well, my question is, do you think that LSU faculty are using Sci-Hub? Well, on 2 different occasions, I've gone to ITS and said, what kind of traffic are you getting to Sci-Hub's IP address from any LSU IP address? And what we found is that you could almost explain the small number going to Sci-Hub by mistakes, like people have maybe miskeying or something. I could be wrong about this, but honestly, we've done this due diligence to see whether we have a serious problem. So, if you want a librarian answer, do I see this as a problem? How on earth can I go back to the university and ask for money to support serials if the demand, which is you all, are going to pirated sites? I need you to help me make the case that we need collections here. If you're using a pirated site, my demand goes away.
in the back, and then.
I'm from the humanities and social sciences, and I know that Elsevier has been sort of a lead culprit in this. But I'm wondering if you do carry out this experiment and it's successful, is this something that you could see yourself applying to sort of JSTOR repositories or things like that as well, or JSTOR, you know, or other? Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. I don't know whether the similar dynamics are in place with some of the humanities and social science journals or repositories, and whether you're feeling the same pressures and might down the line also try to apply this model to that.
Absolutely not. This problem is so isolated in so many different ways to STEM disciplines. So, shoot. Yes, okay. Never JSTOR. So beautiful. They're so beautiful.
Lily next.
Oh, sorry.
Super quick, it's just kind of hitchhiking on what you just said. From my understanding, so I can support this resolution eventually, probably. You're more, you said something I might have misunderstood. You're more interested in the STEM group because they fall in those 164 journals, or tell me what you meant.
Well, first layer is that Elsevier is almost entirely not entirely, but almost entirely a STEM-oriented company. So almost everything that they publish is in that field. But then there's also the dynamic, whether it's Elsevier or any other kind of thing, that journals cost many times more in STEM disciplines than they do in anything else.
Oh, I see. So it's the cost. It's not that people outside of STEM aren't relevant in the fight.
Right. That's definitely not what I'm going to say. Right. This is actually the way you get back to a point where you're supporting non-STEM disciplines in a reasonable way.
When one of us uses interlibrary loan or interlibrary borrowing, does LSU have to pay the other school or Elsevier? In other words, are they aware that we're basically avoiding the subscription cost of the journal?
Jacob, would you like to answer?
Sure. Well, with the expedited thing that we're proposing, there is a cost to the library per use of the expedited 2-hour solution. But ordinary interlibrary loan, we already subscribe to a couple of services that basically, since we subscribe to those services, there's usually no additional cost, or it's very minimal per person.
Any last questions or comments?
Just one thing, if this is successful, every university follows suit, where will we get our interlibrary loan?
Yeah,
Nobody will have to take it. Is that possible, or is that crazy?
No, well, we are in a desperate situation here in such a way that I realize that safeguarding the ecosystem of scholarship is important. We have a strong interest in doing that, and so that's not going to change. But we can't even get to that in the financial situation that we're in right now. And then I have to say that the ecosystem is so much bigger than the few corporate STEM journal publishers who put us here to begin with, right?
Chip?
What if 10 universities formed an alliance and each one said, our university will subscribe to 100 of these journals, and the next one will do another 100, and together all 10 of them cover all 1,000 journals, and each paying a reduced fee, but they all do interlibrary loan together.
If you were Elsevier, would you deal with your top customers in this way, and thereby have a reduction in your revenue stream of order of magnitude? We're talking about commercial publishers here, and so what they're likely to do is to see, don't deal with any size group that you want to put together, but the amount you're going to pay is what you're currently paying right now. And they can say no. I mean, they have a monopoly product, right?
More and more professional societies who either publish their own journal or acceded to one of the big 4 or 5 publishing houses are now re-examining what are the costs for online, whether you have digital or print or both, what are the costs, and it doesn't matter if you publish there's always a cost, because now there's a coding cost, and now there's an access website cost that somebody has to absorb. So either it's the author or the host or both that are going to absorb those costs. And that's what we as academics have to figure out, is what are we willing to support versus the budget and financial support that we have. Each of us in our own discipline, but all of us as a collective. And so Team Wilder has proposed, as the university, in supporting academics and scholarly activity, how are we going to do that with the budgetary limitations we have? And this may only be one option, but at least because our contract with Elsevier ends, we have to consider what are our options. Are we just going to suck it up and let other areas suffer? So thank you very much, Dr. Wilder, for coming and talking. Not to end on that note, since we still have more business, but realistically, Dr. Shibo is here. She is chair of the library committee now. We need 3 or 4 more members minimum to staff the depleted resources, because we had some members that retired, some members that have left the university. So either contact Dr. Shibu or me, and we will get you on that committee, because I think most of you who are publishing academics understand how important the library resources are to us, even if our students don't know where Middleton is on the end of the plot. So in that regard, contact me, Susanna, with the next, in the next few days, we'll be sending out solicitations for several nominations for those committees. So library committee, for sure, definitely the academic technology committee, for sure. The last item of business is a new resolution. I will read that. It's oversight of contract workers and vendors. Facto Senate Resolution 19-01. It is sponsored, and we did discuss in the executive committee, and I think it'll be pretty self-explanatory on why we need this resolution, but we'll be able to address questions after. Remember, this is the first reading, so you'll have plenty of time to mull it over, and we'll then have the second reading at our February meeting. Whereas LSU Louisiana State University underwent many years of budget shortages, which inhibited the replacement of employees throughout campus, whereas the ranks of support staff were diminished along with those of faculty members, whereas the workload of staff was shifted or revised with contract workers and vendors hired to maintain necessary university functions, whereas LSU has policies that are expected to be followed by contract workers and vendors, particularly, but not exclusionary, of tobacco use, whereas the blatant disregard of these policies by contract workers and vendors is not only disruptive to the decorum of the university, but also leads staff, faculty members, and students to believe that they also do not need to follow university policies. Therefore, be it resolved that each contract or work order by the university to an outside vendor or worker specify which university employee is responsible for checking to make sure that the contracted work is completed according to the contract. Therefore, be it further resolved that the responsible university employee should be present at the time that the work is completed to verify the satisfactory completion of the work. Therefore, be it further resolved that for contracts of longer than a one-day period, the work must be checked daily by the responsible university employee and or designee, and a written log of the work progress must be completed each day immediately after the work progress is checked. So I'll entertain a motion to accept this resolution. Kathy, do I see a second so that we can consider it? Yes, second. So now that we have the motion on the table, the resolution on the table, we'll open it up for a brief discussion. Do you all see the reason for this? Yes?
I don't see what the reason for this is.
The reason for this is if you walk around campus, and most of the executive committee, because of all of our different other activities, do, then when you see contract workers standing around and in a group, they're, and I don't want to demean our university employees, but they're even worse than they are. In other words, we already know that when we hire a contract worker, that there's a surcharge because they know that LSU is gonna pay them, and they up the charges. That's a known commodity. We build that into our budgets. The second aspect is they should understand that we expect them to do the work, and in too many cases, it's either shoddy work or it's not completed work, and definitely sometimes it's not on time, and quite honestly, the faculty are tired of it. And if we can get finance and administration and Office of Procurement to do anything about that, so that at least our vendors understand they can't scream obscenities at the top of their lungs when they're standing right outside of Thoreau Hall during the class change, then anything that we can do as a faculty will surely help our community spirit and decorum here at the university.
Is there no oversight now?
We presented this, Kevin and Mandy and I, to Dan and to Dr. Lizelle and to Mr. Kearney at our last meeting with them, and they had no response. Good, bad, or indifferent, it was, oh, okay. Yes, Byron? Yes.
Yeah. I had, I guess, two questions. As I'm reading this, I think clauses 1 through 3 and 6 through 8 make perfectly good sense. And I mean this with all due respect, but clauses 4 and 5 sound like they were thrown in by someone with a chip on their shoulder by tobacco policy.
Yeah.
Like that's just how it reads to me. So I just don't understand where 6 through 8 do anything to address violations of the tobacco policy. So I guess that's one concern. And also, maybe I'm taking this too far a stretch, but I'm just speaking as someone who teaches about rights about social movements and protest. And the word decorum is a dangerous one, especially on a space that's designed to protect academic freedom and democratic practice. And I don't know if LSU has a working definition of decorum, but kind of enshrining that could be, I'm thinking free speech alley, tailgates, things like that.
I'll address your first point first and then the decorum second.
Yeah.
The first point is that my understanding is that when a vendor does contract with LSU, they agree to abide by every single policy that we have. That includes smoking, tobacco use, that includes not parking on sidewalks. I mean, you name it, and they do it. So the second on decorum, we're open to any other word that says, yes, we're a university and we expect you to follow the same guidelines and principles that we do. So whatever word you'd like to substitute, we are a university. We're not a commercial entity. Bill?
So, certainly people want to see work done when you have a contract and you have an expectation for the building to be built or the sidewalk to be put in, or the barbed wire to be taken down. But couldn't this be viewed as kind of punitive to the worker themselves? Like, who's gaining from the work not being done? It's not the person hauling the concrete or, doing the smallest level of job. Smoking might give people an opportunity. I don't know. I'm not against the whole smoking thing, which is weird because, but I don't get it. And I appreciate the spirit. You're saying we're a university and people should behave in the manner in which we're expected our students to behave, right? Who urinate on walls and, and chug beers and whatever. It's disgusting. So,
Wait, the contract workers do that?
right, no, our students do it.
So the purpose of this is to...
I've seen them several times urinating on my building, and it's disgusting. In front. And people have said, don't bother our boys or our people because that's the culture. And I'm like, it's not the culture to urinate on a public building. Sorry.
So the purpose of this is to make that...
And the spitting, the disgusting spitting, that I would love to have a policy about people not spitting rather than not smoking.
But is the purpose of this to prevent the contract?
I don't know.
Well, I'm asking for the process.
It seems...
Because it's to
The
prevent them
purpose is to really set finance and administration in our procurement purchasing office that we're watching.
But is it the
Because we
people?
have no enforcement power, whatever. All we can say is, yes, we would like for you to implement these policies so that we get the most efficient use of our contractors. The other aspect of this is that there's a proposal sent out by Finance Administration to several companies for them to determine which of our services had to be performed by university employees versus be privatized. And if you've dealt with privatization, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But realistically, when you think about the nature of a private company, they not only have to hire an employee, but they also have to pay the fringe benefits and the profit margin so that company stays in business. And in some aspects, how can it possibly be cost effective to privatize versus us being supervising our own people? And realistically, if you look at just the effect that that privatization request for proposals emitted among our staff, particularly facility services, they're leaving like flies.
Okay, so it's interfering with.
So again, if we have this resolution, and it's up to you to decide at the next meeting whether we're going to pass or not, but at least we will set the university on notice that the faculty is watching, and just because we're privatizing doesn't mean that the work's going to get done, unless we have some degree of oversight.
Do we have to fight at a higher level versus looking, maybe I'm not getting it, I'm sorry I'm talking so much today, but.
Well, this is not to demean all the contract workers that we have come to LSU, because some of them are necessary.
Right.
But they should all perform at the level that we want them to perform, and if there's no oversight, how do we know whether we're actually...
So where did it come from? Like, where do we see that there's no oversight, things aren't getting done, and we're seeing people smoking and stuff?
Do you want me to start pointing fingers?
But I want to support it if it's, because I'm malleable, I'm just opinionated.
Yes, Randy?
Right.
Has staff senate weighed in on this?
No, they have not.
They might have some.
That will be the next step.
That's a good.
They might even be able to shape this in a good way.
That is an extremely good suggestion. And if we vote to go ahead, well, we've got a motion, so now we need to vote before we actually then enter it into our business so we can consider it next meeting. But if we do that, then yes, that will be a good step for me to do, is to send it immediately to Tammy Milliken, the staff senate president, and say, we're considering this resolution, what does your staff senate think about that? Absolutely good. Chip?
I have no experience with how the university hires vendors and contractors. This is not what I do. So, just naively, when as a homeowner, if I hire someone to do a project, and if I don't like the way they do it, I complain. And I'm the guy who's paying. Now, so me, if I were some administrator or whoever is the guy who's supposed to hire someone to pour some concrete or fix some plumbing or something, and if he does a bad job, I'll complain. I don't need someone else to tell me I need to complain. I have common sense. It's my desire. I want him to do the work. He didn't do it or he did it badly. So I'm complaining. Why do I need some third guy to tell me to complain?
We're not asking for a third guy. We're asking for university employees who otherwise might be doing that work to make sure that it is done to our satisfaction.
Oh, that's not how okay, that sounds like a different.
Then how are we going to word it so it does say
Like
that?
that? Like, whereas if we think that a university employee could do it, they have a possibility to weigh in on the outcome. I don't know. I mean, that's different than smoking and, I don't know. It's, sorry. Just,
Well, we're trying to be as inclusive as possible with all the different things that vendors have been observed doing. Yes, Andrew.
In the fourth whereas, it says policies are expected to be followed. Is it actually a part of the contract with contractors?
My understanding
that
is,
they
yes, coming out,
policies?
that's what I've been told by purchasing.
Have you seen it with these contracts? Or?
A couple, yes, and they do, the ones that I've seen. But I can't speak for all. I mean, we're like every other state agency, hundreds, if not thousands of contracts. I don't want to put our new provost on the spot, but perhaps she might shed some light from the academic
I had a different
perspective.
understanding of this. I thought this was because there were concerns that the vendors were exhibiting conduct in terms of catcalling or things that are inappropriate, as opposed to they're not getting the work done. To me, I see those as two very, it is absolutely the responsibility of the administration. If the work isn't conducted, there are a series of steps that will follow for that. And whoever has written that contract is responsible for outlining what is expected. So we might look at the work and say, well, that's horrible. But that was what was outlined, and that's what was provided. And so I think that it's difficult if you're removed from that to make a judgment about it. And that does happen, and there are complaints, there are lawsuits if necessary, et cetera, et cetera. My understanding is recently, and again, this is third hand, but my understanding of this, that there was in fact an employee of a contractor who made inappropriate remarks. That complaint was forwarded. That vendor was contacted and that employee was fired. Now that may not be what we want ultimately in it, but they were fired because that's not appropriate conduct. And so Finance and Administration, Dan and I in conversation with the President, that's what I relayed, and everyone was in complete agreement that that conduct's not appropriate, and if somebody were to turn in a student and refer it to student accountability, there would be a process that would be followed, and so we would expect the same for anybody. If you and I did that with a student, there's a process whereby that complaint, and that's what we thought this was seeking. So if it's, we want to make sure work is done, and we want some mechanism where that's different from my understanding. So anyway, let's
So
figure that out.
that's so important. You're talking about posing a threat or a violation to a student, which I hear what you're saying. You're saying if somebody behaves in a way that's in violation of, safety, perceived safety, a hostile environment. Yeah,
Right. Exactly.
That I hear, but that seemed like more embedded in this. I didn't.
Well, and that's why that was my reading of it and understanding of it. So I think this is broader than my appreciation initially. So I enjoy being enlightened.
What else?
Well, I think
Yes.
this gets to what Provost was saying, but I'm just not sure. There are those two aspects to this resolution of is the work getting done and are policies being followed. And the whereases do seem to refer to both of those. The therefores, I don't see anything that refers to the policies. Is there something in there that I'm missing where there's some oversight of that the policies are being followed and some procedures in place? Because it all just seems to be about the work getting done, whereas the first part seems to be about also policies being followed.
Well, in the very last line, we could change in a written log of the work progress and policy following be completed. In other words, you have to be there to see whether they're following the policies or not. Because I can say I follow every university policy, and yet I don't know all the university policies that I might not be following. So in that regard, yes, we'll accept any wording if we want to get these points across. And if it's a moot point that
I do want to just say, if this is suggesting that the administration needs to ensure that there is a university employee on site for all work, that is another thing we will have to budget for, because those employees are actually scheduled to do their job. And so the assumption is you hire a contractor, they come and they do the work. If the reading is, I want to be careful I understand, if the reading is that we hired a contractor, so we just remodeled some space for Comedy, that an LSU employee has to be there the entire time that work is being done.
that's not the
private
intent.
vendor.
No,
As I see it,
The intent
The responsibility
is the work done.
should be present at the time that the work is completed, so there, I don't know, there is certainly university employees that will verify the work was done before you release payment. That's required in a contract, so I'm broadening now beyond what's here. I want to make sure, because if you've got a, anyway.
Several building coordinators are concerned that they report that this needs to be done. A contract vendor comes in, and then there's no evidence that indeed either the work was done or that it was done satisfactory. So the building coordinator calls again and they say, oh yeah, so-and-so took care of that. And it's like, well, no, our air conditioning still doesn't work or whatever it is. In other words, there appears to be a gap, at least in accountability, if there's not some oversight by a university employee. And we want, if indeed there's going to be oversight, who's responsible for the oversight? You can't just say, oh, somebody's going to do it. So we want more specifics, and so we're open to any wording, or if we don't decide to do this. Yes?
Vendors also work during the weekends, they work during holidays, so are you gonna have an employee come in? I mean, I'm sort of confused at the purpose of this, because if a vendor doesn't do their job, then don't hire that vendor. You know, and if an employee is doing a poor job with what the vendors we've done, we're having work done at the museum now, and I know exactly where to go to if the work's not being done correctly.
Brian, questions? Comment?
Real quick, a long time ago, you had somebody come in and say there's a designee for each building who knows when things are going to be changed, which I didn't know. So we might already have a stopgap in place where I mean, certain people must be responsible and must know about, like, in a long field house, they know, they go through Melinda or something like this. So I'm not trying to muddy this, but maybe
That would be nice if it happened, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of make believe. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
All right, so I'll call the question for, do you want to enter this resolution into your business? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no.
No.
Okay, any abstentions? All right, we'll drop it then. Any other things
Let me just say,
that
I will convey my misunderstanding so that there is concern that we are ensuring that it's ultimately about the resources that our students and tax dollars, taxpayers are giving to this university, that we're stewarding them well. And that when we hire a vendor, we ensure that the vendor is doing the job. And I think the point was absolutely correct. The vendor knows they're not going to work for us again. And we're a big university with lots of ongoing work. And if a vendor doesn't do a good job, they're not used again. So I also want to confirm that. But I will certainly follow up with Stanley's health office to convey the conversation.
I also feel that we have to have bold also in the contract, the behavior,
Yes.
you know, has to be becoming of, you know, what we expect of any university employee, that is the contract.
So is there anything else we need to consider today? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed no. Any abstentions? Thank you.